Hey guys, welcome to our channel Knowledge World. In this video, we'll be learning the third chapter of Class 9 ICAC Chemistry, that is water. So let's begin. So, why is water considered a compound? Water is considered a compound as it is a combination of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. Water is also considered as an amphoteric, meaning it acts both as an acid and a base. It produces H plus ions and OH minus ions by self ionization. Now let's look at the chemical properties of water. So the first one is in a water molecule, hydrogen and oxygen are combined in fixed ratio by mass. And the second one is components cannot be separated by physical means. Third one is it has a definite composition. Fourth one, it has a definite melting point, boiling point, freezing point, and density. And the fifth one, water can react with metals to form corresponding hydroxides. So now let's look at the physical properties of water. Color. Water is colorless. It seems blue because of the scattering of light. Odor. Water is odorless, that is, it does not have any smell. Taste. Water is tasteless, but sometimes we feel the taste because of the dissolved salts in it and the impurities in it. The melting point is 0 degree under normal pressure, but if the pressure increases, the melting point also decreases. Boiling point. 100 degree is the boiling point of water, 100 degrees Celsius at normal pressure, but if the pressure increases, the boiling point of water also increases. Density. The density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube or 1 gram per centimeter cube at 4 degrees Celsius, and at 4 degrees Celsius water has the maximum density. So now let's discuss why is water called a universal solvent. Water is called a universal solvent since it is capable of dissolving a variety of different substances more than any other liquid. Water can dissolve more substances than any other compound because of its polar nature. The water molecules, because of their composition, hydrogen with a positive charge on one side and oxygen with negative charge on the other side, are able to attract other molecules easily. So now let's discuss about the chemical composition of water. So the molecular formula of water is H2O, as we all know. And then the mass ratio of elements is 1 is to 8, that is the ratio of hydrogen and oxygen. The atomic mass of hydrogen is 1 and the atomic mass of oxygen is 16. The chemical name of water is dihydrogen oxide. Dihydrogen means 2 hydrogens and oxide means 1 oxygen. So dihydrogen oxide. So the molecular mass of water. The atomic mass of hydrogen plus atomic mass of oxygen. Since there are 2 hydrogen atoms, 2 into atomic mass of hydrogen plus atomic mass of oxygen. That is 2 into 1 plus 1 into 16. That is 2 plus 16. We get 18 AMU, 18 atomic mass unit. So now let's talk about solutions as mixtures in solids in water. So what is a solution? Solution is a homogeneous mixture of two substances, the components of which cannot be seen separately. Solute. A substance which can dissolve in a solvent to form a solution. Solvent. A medium in which the solute dissolves. So solution equals solvent plus solute. So here solution is the homogeneous mixture of the solute and the solvent. The solute is the substance which gets dissolved in the solvent, and the solvent is a medium in which the solute dissolves. For example, salt plus water. Salt is the solute, solvent is water, and salt plus water gives us the solution. There are three types of solutions: true solutions, dilute solutions, and concentrated solutions. True solution, a homogeneous mixture of two or more substances, the components of which is not fixed and may vary within certain limits. Dilute solutions, a solution in which the amount of solute is relatively small as compared to the solvent. That means we can add more solute in the solvent. And then comes concentrated solution, a solution in which the amount of solute is relatively large as compared to the amount of solvent. That means the solution is already full of solute and can't dissolve more of solute in it. So now let's discuss about saturated solutions. So a saturated solution is a solution which cannot dissolve any more quantity of solute in a given amount of solvent at a given temperature. That means the maximum amount of solute is already dissolved in the solvent at the given temperature. If the temperature is increased, more solute can be added. Unsaturated solution is a solution which can dissolve more of the solute in the given amount of solvent at a given temperature. That means more solute can be added to the solvent to form a saturated solution at the given temperature. Then comes supersaturated solution, a solution which contains more of the solute than what is present in the saturated solution at the particular temperature. Meaning, if a saturated solution cannot hold more solute at the given temperature, we can increase the temperature and add more solute. And when we do that, it again becomes a saturated solution. But when we cool down, the extra solute is still in the solution. This kind of solution is called supersaturated solution. Then comes aqueous and non-aqueous solutions. Aqueous solution is a solution in which water has been used as a solvent. For example, common salt and water, NaCl plus H2O. Then comes non-aqueous solution, a solution in which the solvent is used other than water. Example, sulfur dissolved in carbon disulfide. So now let's discuss about common solvents which are used other than water. So some of them are turpentine, carbon disulfide, acetone, alcohol, petrol, oxalic acid, benzene, etc. Now let's discuss about solubility. Solubility is the maximum amount of solute in grams which can be dissolved in 100 grams of solvent at that temperature. Meaning, if I say that the solubility of water at this temperature is this much, it means that water at this temperature can dissolve a certain amount of solute in 100 grams of solvent. Now let's discuss about solubility curve. A solubility curve is a straight line graph which shows the changes in solubility of a solute in a given solvent with change in temperature. So it is a graph which shows the change in solubility of a solute or a compound in a given solvent when the temperature changes. It shows what happens to a solute when the temperature increases, what happens to a solute when the temperature decreases, etc. Now let's discuss about solubility. Solubility is the maximum amount of solute in grams which can be dissolved in 100 grams of solute in 100 grams of solvent at that temperature. Meaning, if I say that the solubility of water at this temperature is this much, it means that water at this temperature can dissolve a certain amount of solute in 100 grams of solvent. Now let's discuss about solubility curve. A solubility curve is a line graph which shows the changes in solubility of a solute in a given solvent within. Now let's discuss about solubility curve. A solubility curve is a straight line graph which shows the changes in solubility of a solute in a given solvent with change in temperature. So it is a graph which shows the change in solubility of a solute or a compound in a given solvent when the temperature changes. So when the increase it shows what happens to a solute when the temperature increases, what happens to a solute when the temperature decreases, etc. Now let's look at the inferences from solubility curve. Decrease in solubility of substances with increase in temperature. For some substances, when we increase the temperature, the solubility decreases. Example, calcium sulfate. Increase in solubility of substances with rise in temperature. When the temperature is increased, the solubility of the substance also increase. Example, sodium nitrate, potassium bromide, etc. Slight increase in solubility with increase in temperature. For few substances, when the temperature increases, there is just a slight increase in the solubility. Example, sodium chloride. And then comes anomalous solubility. For some substances, the solubility behavior is very different from the other substances. These kind of substances have anomalous solubility. Example, sodium sulfate. The solubility of sodium sulfate after 36 degree increases rapidly. It is hydrous below 36 degree and anhydrous above that temperature. Now let's discuss about crystals and crystallization. A crystal is a homogeneous solid arranged symmetrically meeting the sharp edges at definite angles to one another having a definite geometrical shape. Crystallization is the process by which the crystals are obtained from hot saturated solution by cooling. Water of crystallization. The fixed amount of water which is associated with crystals and which form an integral part of the crystal is called water of crystallization. Now let's discuss about water of crystallization in detail. Water of crystallization. When crystals of certain salts are formed, they do so with a definite number of molecules of water that are chemically combined in definite proportion. Water of crystallization is defined as the number of water molecules chemically combined in a definite molecular proportion with the salt in its crystalline state. This water is responsible for the geometric shape and the color of the crystals. Now let's discuss about hydrates. So a hydrate is a substance containing water of crystallization. It is also called as hydrous substance. This water can be expelled by heating and then the salt is said to have become anhydrous. Examples are copper sulfate, ferrous sulfate, sodium carbonate, etc. Now let's discuss about anhydrate compounds. An anhydrate compound or an anhydrate is a compound with no water in its structure. After water is removed from a hydrate, it becomes anhydrate. The water molecules are removed by suction or heating the compound at high temperature. Now let's discuss about efflorescence and deliquescence. Crystalline hydrate salts, when on exposure to atmosphere, lose their moisture partly or completely to the atmosphere and change into amorphous state. Meaning the hydrated salts, crystalline hydrated salts, when exposed to the atmosphere, lose their moisture, the water content in them, completely or partially to the atmosphere and change into amorphous state. Example: washing soda and glauber salt. Deliquescence. Water soluble salts absorb moisture from the atmosphere and dissolve in it to form a saturated solution. The substance is called deliquescent and the phenomenon is called deliquescence. Example: caustic potash, magnesium chloride, caustic soda, etc. Now let's discuss about hygroscopy. When a substance can absorb moisture from the air without changing its state, the substance is called hygroscopic and the phenomenon is called hygroscopy. Examples: copper oxide, calcium oxide. Desiccants. Substances which can readily absorb or remove moisture from other substances are called desiccants. Example: fused calcium chloride, fused phosphorus pentoxide, anhydrous calcium chloride, quicklime, etc. Now let's discuss about hard water and soft water. Water is said to be soft if it readily forms lather with soaps, and water is said to be hard when it does not readily form lather with soaps. Hard water is of two types: permanent hardness and temporary hardness. Temporary hardness. Water which contains only hydrogen carbonates of calcium and magnesium is called temporary hardness in water. Its hardness can be removed just by boiling. Permanent hardness. Water containing sulfates and chlorides of magnesium and calcium is called permanent hard water. This hardness cannot be removed by boiling. Now let's discuss about the advantages of hard water. Soft water is free from dissolved salts and has a very flat taste. The presence of salt in hard water make it tasty. Calcium and magnesium salts present in small amount in hard water are essential for the growth of our bones and teeth because they are made up of calcium. Calcium sulfate present in hard water forms insoluble lead sulfate in the form of a layer inside lead pipes, and this checks lead poisoning. Now let's discuss about the disadvantages of hard water. Hard water is not suitable for producing steam. Steam is made in boilers which are made of narrow copper tubes. As water enters these tubes, it changes into steam, while salts are incapable of changing into vapor and deposit in the inner walls of the tube. This goes on and makes the bore of the tube narrower and narrower. Hard water is also unfit for washing purposes. We can't wash our clothes or wash our utensils using hard water. Hardness can be removed in three ways: temporary removal, permanent removal, both temporary and permanent removal. First, let's discuss about temporary. By boiling, carbon dioxide is driven off and soluble hydrogen carbonates are converted into insoluble carbonates and can be removed by filtration or decantation. By addition of lime. In this method, a calculated quantity of slaked lime is added. Lime is first added to water in a tank and then mixed with hard water in another tank. By addition of washing soda. When washing soda is added to hard water, insoluble carbonates settle and can be removed by filtration. Now let's discuss about permanent hardness. Water is treated with calculated quantity of soda ash to remove permanent hardness. Lime is also used as magnesium carbonate is not fully precipitate for removal of temporary and permanent hardness. For large amounts of water, permutate method is used. It is hydrated sodium aluminium orthosilicate having the formula of Na2Al2Si2O8 dot n number of H2. So guys, thanks for watching the video. If you found the video helpful, give a like to this video, share this video with your friends and family, and subscribe to our channel Knowledge World for more informative videos.